Our keynote speaker tonight is the new Commissioner of Police for New South Wales, Michael Fuller. He took over from a fellow who'd had the job for a good many years and by and large was judged to do a pretty good job of it. So there were big boots to fill. And I've got to say, journalists, we're a pretty tough bunch. We jump on people whether they need it or not. And so far we've found nothing particular to jump on you about. But we're hoping it's just early days. We'll get a chance to jump on you for something. I won't go through all of Commissioner Fuller's career and its developments, although I will point out that among the areas in which he was very prominent and has been prominent is in the area of family and domestic violence, which was one of the areas where the previous Commissioner, as he reflected on his career as he was retiring, conceded that he felt it was the greatest regret of his time in the office that he hadn't got more vigorously onto the subject of domestic violence earlier. He certainly did through the work of now Commissioner Fuller. Please join me in welcoming Commissioner Michael Fuller as our keynote speaker.
Thank you, Hugh, and thanks for that absolute warm welcome. It's wonderful to be here tonight. And there are so many special guests here tonight. I think if I rang through everyone, that would be the end of my keynote speech. But Ahmed, thank you so much for the invitation to be here tonight. You have such a big family. I feel honoured to be part of it. And hopefully after tonight I'll be a cousin as well. But I guess it depends how it goes, so I'll be on my best behaviour. There's a couple of people I will acknowledge. His Honourable Ray Williams, for being a co-host, and we have seen each other, and thanks for the recognition of the weight I put on in the last 9 weeks. I think it's been a kilo a week, and Miss Sophie Kotsis, who I've enjoyed your company as well, and welcoming me to Parliament House. And there are many, many other special guests, and I too will acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, and Stan Grant's Welcome to Country was a special one, and pay my respects to elders past and present. The month of Ramadan, it's funny, I was thinking about what I know about the month of Ramadan, and I listened to Hugh come here, immigrate to Australia, and the Premier spoke last week, and they immigrated to Australia, and I feel like I'm out of a story, but I'll tell you a funny one in that I married a woman who wasn't born in Australia. My mother-in-law was born in a different country, and my father-in-law was born in a different country, and coming into their life was very different for me than what I was used to. And walking into their house, I'm the skippy boy. It was really interesting for me after really so many years of eating lamb chops and cut oranges as salad and being home when the street lights are on, to all of a sudden to be embraced in a different culture. So for mine, coming here tonight and really doing some homework on Ramadan, and what it means is that I think there are many cultures within our community that celebrate something which is really about faith, which is about religion, it's about family and friends, and I think, for me, is it running through what Ramadan is for you, and what small amount I know about that is it's not about me just tonight imparting on, I guess, my thoughts around myself as the Commissioner and where hopefully I'll take public safety in New South Wales and relationships, but it's also about you imparting information on me. So I certainly am honoured to be here tonight. I think it's important to know I'll talk about a community and about what a harmonious community is from New South Wales police perspectives, but also talk about crime and where we are with crime and the partnerships that media, police and the community can play in that. And we will touch a little bit about terrorism as well, because I guess, particularly the last couple of weeks, it's something that leads every story. It's on the front of every newspaper. But I think it's important to acknowledge the enormous contribution that the Muslim community has made in New South Wales, and I think that certainly can be overlooked. But from a police perspective, it is certainly not missed. We know when we open a police station, when we have community expos or community consultations, is that, particularly southwestern Sydney, who is out there, but it's the Muslim community leaders. And I think there are many examples of that when we don't talk positively enough about the good relationships that are out there. I think we focus too much on the negative. And I think when it comes to social harmony and positive relationships is that, often we believe too much about what we read or what we see, and not enough about who is actually doing the heavy lifting. And often that is not, the most vocal person in the room. think about social harmony, and I spoke about, I guess, my family and the fact that, you know, 3 important people in my life weren't born in this country. But when we talk about, there are over 200 birthplaces from around the world in New South Wales. We have over 200 languages spoken, 300 ancestries, and over 100 religious traditions, and really incredible statistics. And I think some of the previous speakers have spoken about what is harmony for us. And I think that you would be forgiven to thinking, if you were watching from outside New South Wales, that there was a lot of social disharmony. And I'm here to say, from the Police Commissioner's perspective, I certainly don't think that is the case. And I think as a group we need to continue the conversation in terms of what is happening from a positive perspective. So I'm not suggesting that everything is perfect at the same time, and I guess what tonight is about is recognising the great things that we are doing and about, well, how can we take it, you know, to the next level. I think we need to reflect on crime, and we spoke about Andrew Scipione and the wonderful things he did in the last 10 years, and I, like many others in the room, served loyally for him. And I guess crime is only one indicator for social harmony, but at the moment I think in modern societies it's probably one of the most important issues. And when you think about the amount of energy we put into different crimes, I guess my job as a commissioner is to challenge the government around how much effort we are putting into, say, organised crime and terrorism versus how much we're putting into the prevention of crime. And from my perspective, I came in on a very, I guess, strong platform, if you like, which is a more of a politician term, around saying that I think New South Wales Police and government have done a wonderful job in terms of the response to crime, and in that we get better at responding to crime, we get better at gathering evidence and putting people before the court, and they're getting lengthy sentences. But at the end of the day, filling jails continually can't be the only way forward for us as a society. So one of my great visions in the role is to move into the area of disruption, which is important, but more importantly into prevention. And I think if Stan was here, he would agree that the national statistics around Aboriginals in custodies, and particularly young Aboriginals in custody, is absolutely concerning. And I think that as a group, when we talk about social harmonisation, that we need to save a generation of our kids from, you know, a life of custody, and, you know, take pressure off our economy by not just building more jails and more jails. So how do you do that? There's many ways that we do that. One is you need leaders to talk about prevention that is as important as our responses to crime, and to champion the dollar to go into prevention for many, many good reasons. But we also need to try and harness all those people that are working in prevention to come together as a single cause, those non-government organisations, government itself, police and PCYCs. And we're only at the PCYC dinner last week when I spoke about the fact that I think as the Commissioner is a wonderful opportunity for me to bring together community leaders like are in this room and build trust for our sons and daughters, to give them another pathway other than one into the judicial system. Because history would say is that if you start on that pathway as a young person, then you will continue that pathway as an adult. Therefore, those stories are unfortunately the stories that we see in the papers, and kids become adults, and we're seeing people engaging in different types of crimes that are concerning to communities. So, but if I said to you that the crime rates in New South Wales are the lowest in 40 years, you probably wouldn't believe that. And Boxar will release their figures, independent from New South Wales Police, in a couple of days. And again, think about that at the moment. Our crime rates in New South Wales are the lowest they have been in 40 years. Yet I wonder, compared to the generation of 40 years ago, do we feel safer, or do we feel more fear? And potentially that is around terrorism. But again, we don't seem to celebrate the good news stories, the positives in our communities, the work that you do with the New South Wales Police in terms of solving crime and more importantly, preventing crime. That has got us to a point where over 40 years we've probably doubled in size as a community to 7.2 million people, but yet we achieve the best crime results we have in 40 years. Now, we didn't do that on our own. We did that with you. So I want you to go away tonight from my perspective, when people talk doom and gloom around multiculturalism and public safety, it is the greatest myth, I think, of modern time. And I would ask you that when Boxar puts out its statistics, that you think not just about the performance of New South Wales Police in that, but think about us as a group. The judiciary's here, the media's here, everyone is here, and think how we celebrate that. But the reality is that we probably won't. We'll probably have a front page story about an incident that would have happened somewhere else around the world. And unfortunately, from a media perspective now, it's global. So 40 years ago, media was probably all just about New South Wales. And of course, that keeps us informed in so many ways. But I think it's also distorted our view on safety. So the next challenge for me as the Commissioner is not to, I guess, rest on my laurels of the 10 great years of Andrew Scipione and the previous police that have delivered that 40 years, but it's about maintaining the highest levels of public safety and really reinforce with the community that we are working together to make New South Wales safer. In fact, we have done that for many, many years, but we need to start the conversation tonight. We need to continue it. And when people talk about organised crime and terrorism, they are terrible crimes that we are investing significant amount of time and money into. But the reality is that the real threat to you will be cybercrime. People in this room are much more likely to be victims of a fraud or potentially, sadly, still domestic and family violence. So I think we need to measure our conversations in relation to what really is impacting on us. But the reality is, even in the domestic and family violence space, we have come such a long way in terms of victims from all of those cultures I've spoken about have the confidence now to come forward to police, have the confidence to come forward to government and NGOs now to report the fact they're a victim of crime. Now, we couldn't have established that unless there is some sense of trust amongst those communities. So again, in terms of crime, I would ask that, yes, my kids worry about terrorism. Yes, my neighbours worry about organised crime. But let's keep it into perspective in terms of the good news stories around what we have done as a community with police and the media as a strong partnership around where we're at. We're safest we've been in 40 years. Listening to the community is important for us, and I think that New South Wales Police has had generational change, and most officers now come out of university. Some have multiple degrees, and I think it's a wonderful thing now that we are a reflection of the community. We have many police from different background, cultures, religion, and I think it has made us a much richer organisation. But I think it's important that we continue that, and we do things like coffee with a cop, and that's about, we'll park ourselves somewhere and sit down and have a coffee with the community, and it's about accessibility. And we do surveys through our multicultural liaison officers, and many of you would have had contact with them who do wonderful work in the community, and we do surveys, and the surveys come back and say that still one of the biggest barriers is language, and we need to respect the police out of their comfort zone. And if there are police days or you're at the Easter show with your family, then take some time, because as my police understand that we are all the same, then you will also build that same sense of trust. And why is that important? It's important because we know that without police and the community working together, we can't continue to achieve the next 40 years of public safety in New South Wales. And we will continue to grow in size, and I want to make us 41 years of the safest we have been in New South Wales. And an important partnership in that is the media, and here I think there is still some work to do in that space, and I certainly not about to go to war with the media either, Hugh, but the reality is, again, is that how do we get the good news stories into the paper? How do we get the good news stories on TV? That's the challenge for us. And do you turn off when the good news stories comes on TV? And is it about a ratings issue? But I guess from us that we are powerful, stepping back as the Commissioner, as the community, and we need to put pressure on to get these good stories out there, because on those good news stories it builds trust, builds better relationships, and it builds a safer New South Wales. I'll give you this undertaking as I push into the area of prevention, that I want to build your trust and that I want you to reach out and trust us in terms of perhaps providing information that may save a life. And I guess words are sometimes words, but you will see action from me in the coming months. I could talk about youth prevention and just say as a wonderful thing that we're going to focus on it, but I'm actually going to take responsibility under me as the Commissioner, so I own it. So I figure if I own it and it's important to me, then it will be important to you, it'll be important to the police, and hopefully important to other partners like the media, and that we can work together in terms of saving a generation of not my kids, but our kids. So for mine, Ramadan, I know a little bit about it. I look forward to talking with you after the dinner to learn more about it and your cultures. I'm here tonight because I want you to get to know me as the Commissioner of Police and there build more trust with the New South Wales Police Force, because again, it is absolutely a partnership of respect, and I'm certainly here because I respect you. Thanks very much.